We get pure fulfillment through service. He says trauma's not real.
Most of the pain that we experience is really attached to an outcome not happening how we want to.
Everybody has something from childhood that if you don't deal with it will end up completely directing your life. I'm never going to be a victim. Your value is not connected to a balance sheet. If money is the destination, well, you're never going to be happy.
The hardest person we have ever faced, currently faced, or will ever face is ourselves.
It's not good or bad. Is it aligned or misaligned?
What we view as bad really actually is for our good.
The financial system is just busted. The greatest lie in personal finance is the younger you are, the more risk you can take. My advice is not great for everybody.
Welcome to the Burnout Podcast. I'm excited for a gentleman. We're just actually meeting each other today.
Yeah.
Your home base is what state?
Well, technically, I go between Arizona and the Dominican Republic.
Yeah. So Chris Kirkpatrick is with me today, introduced by Sean Finnegan. We've got a lot of similarities in the insurance investment world. He has a retreat center. Let's start off with talking about alignment.
Yeah.
And a big part of your message, previous to doing this, I ran an investment management firm and, looking kind of at some of your social posts, one of the things that you said that I loved is we're taught that we need to save, put things away, which again, everybody needs to do that.
Totally.
But more often than not, I can't tell you how many times I saw people that were sacrificing experience in life along the way. And it's like, when I get to this point, when I get there, then I'm going to be able to enjoy life. And then I'm going to be able to do this. And I saw it happen dozens and dozens of times where something in life happens, something gets sick, and they never even get to enjoy it. And they missed out on so much of life.
So bad. There's a couple things that have happened in my life. First of all, my best friend died when he was 51 years old. And just watching and seeing him, and he was an executive for Papa John's Pizza, like really successful, whatever, but he was just owned by his job and he didn't have any time freedom. And, we would always go out and like look at like these massive luxury coaches. And, he had this dream of like just living in an RV and doing all these things. And he never got to experience it. He died when his daughter was at college at ASU. And, seeing things like that makes it real. My father-in-law was working and he got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, still working, about to retire. I had another buddy who retired and 6 months later is dead. It's like you see this enough and you realize like there's more to life than just going to school, getting a job, investing, and hoping that 40 years later you're going to have enough money to be able to live the life. And I mean, it's a cliche, but everybody says tomorrow's not promised to any of us, and it's not, right? So I just think the way I look at it is I think the financial system is just busted. The way that people are taught about money is broken. I mean, there's some truth, like every good lie, there's some truth in every good lie, right? Like that's the manipulation part of a lot of it. But what I would say is we need to start utilizing money as a tool to create a life that we want to create. Money is not the destination. Finances are not the destination. Life is the destination. Like experiences are the destination, and like getting clear about the life that we want to live and then figuring out and realizing, I should say, that there's no good or bad. I think that's the challenge. Like we could go talk to 100 different advisors, right?
100 different opinions.
100 different answers, 100 different opinions on what's right, what's wrong, this, that. And the reality is there is no right or wrong. It's just, is it aligned or misaligned to who you are, what your gifts, skills, abilities are, your network, your goals, the life that you ultimately desire? And do you understand money as a tool well enough to actually go out and utilize it to create that, that life?
Yes. What would you tell somebody, right? Again, the subscribe to that, the we'll call it the Dave Ramsey, right? Of that approach. Because again, obviously being prudent with your finances and spending and right, but yet nevertheless, like, again, there's a lot of scarcity, there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of fear that's attached to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dave Ramsey and his advice to me is like some of the worst. There's elements of it, like I said, elements of it that are true, right? You want to be diligent and you want to be intentional with what you're doing. I look at it as financial structure is more important than what you're doing with like it, than going out and investing and taking risk and what assets am I doing? And I think the greatest lie in personal finance is the younger you are, the more risk you can take. I mean, it's true. You can take risk because if you lose, you have more time to make up for it. But in my world, it's like the younger you are, the less risk you have to take because you have time and compounding on your side. And the challenge is we're all taught that it's, swing big, try to get there fast. And it's like slow and steady wins the race, and if you can just understand that we always talk about in the financial industry about compounding our money, like compounding is the eighth wonder of the world kind of deal, right? Albert Einstein gets quoted for that, even though I don't know if he actually said it, but yeah, exactly. But if compounding is the eighth wonder of the world and we always focus on money, I think what I find, and this is the people, and listen, I'm going to say this and caveat this with like, my advice is great for a certain segment of the population. My advice is not great for everybody. Like, if you're not an entrepreneur or real estate investor, if you don't feel called to do something and create something more in the world, my advice is probably not good for you, right? But if you want to create something, if you want to learn how to utilize money as a tool to step into what you were called to this earth for, well, then that's what it's all about. And so when I look at that and I look at people, your greatest need is not getting a bigger rate of return on your investments. Your greatest need is, how do you learn how to create more? How do you learn how to create more value? Because money always follows value, right? And how are you utilizing money as a tool to actually do that? And what I look at from a compounding perspective, we think money compounds, people compound, right? Like, you're wildly different than you were 10 years ago. I'm wildly different than I was 10 years ago. Like, if I could hop in a DeLorean and go talk to myself 10 years ago and say, hey, Chris, 10 years from now, here's where you're going to be, I wouldn't believe myself. I would not believe myself. I would have told myself that I was crazy and that it was an illusion, not even possible, because that version of me was not where I needed to be to actually even believe in the possibility. But if we talk about it's Atomic Habits, right? Like, he talks about this, the fact all the time is like, if we could just improve incrementally every day while massive shift happens over a period of time.
Yeah, it's the ripple effect.
It's the ripple effect. Totally.
It's baby steps that all of a sudden, and it also can work against us, right?
Totally.
Negative things, all of a sudden, that little ripple all of a sudden becomes a tsunami.
100%.
On both sides of it.
Yeah, 100%.
What type of a mindset do you feel like somebody has to have? Because I think a lot of when it comes to money too, especially we as men, tie so much of our identity to that.
I see this a lot. I have this conversation maybe more than any other conversation, because I think detach from the result, and realize that your value is not connected to a balance sheet. Listen, we all need money to live. We all need money to create value, and it's a tool, right? But I would say that if money is the destination, well, you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be fulfilled, right? It's great to have goals. It's great to have objectives that we want to accomplish and different benchmarks that we want to hit. But I think it's important that we don't get laser focused on those destinations, because like, I had a destination 10 years ago, right, that I wanted to get to, and I never achieved it. But where I am now is so much better, right? And I think by setting those expectations, it's a very scarcity mindset, because you become almost like Gollum, trying to hold on to it, and then you don't have the ability to open up if you're just focused on like, this is where I am, I need this money because this is my destination, and this is like, and you become laser focused on that, rather than, I just feel like if we just say, all right, money's a tool, this is the life that I want, and I'm open to expansion, I'm open to growing, I'm open to the fact that the more I learn, the less I know, I'm open to the fact that as I continue to evolve, my potential is so much more than I can even comprehend, and I believe that. And that allows you to think from a place of abundance. And when you do that, now it's like, I just want to spend every single day doing the next right thing, what's in front of me, be willing to build discernment, be willing to and focused on building relationships, and focused on becoming who I need to become to step into the next version of myself.
You're speaking my love language. I mean, I connect, I see the world today as you just articulated. Yeah. And here's a question. I mean, again, it sounds like, it's like, oh my gosh, it'd be great to see the world that way. It'd be great to see the world that way. And my belief is one of the ways that one person can actually see life that way is there's a catalyst that has to happen before that. And it's usually there's a rupture.
Sure. Totally.
Right. So
100%.
Can you look back even in your own life, like there was a rupture that actually like literally is like, you know what, the way I'm doing things isn't working.
Ironically, my rupture, and I'll be totally open, vulnerable, and real about this, because my wife and I share it openly and publicly. My rupture was my marriage, and realizing that my marriage is the most important thing in the world to me, and my businesses, all this stuff, were successful, right? But there were things that I was doing as a man, that I wasn't showing up in a way for my wife that I needed to be. And, she came to me, 15 years ago, she's been sober for 15 years. And before that, as an active alcoholic, there were some, transgressions that happened, and, we worked through that. And then, it was about 4 years ago, she actually asked me for an open marriage, and it broke me. And I looked at everything and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I didn't see it coming from a million miles. It was the biggest shock of my life. And as soon as that happened, even though it had nothing to do with business, I did this deep dive of who am I as a man, and I think how we show up in business is how we show up in our marriage, is how we show up as a father, is how we show up as a friend, as a business partner. And it drives me nuts to see people or hear people say, oh, well, this is just business. This is and they compartmentalize or silo the way they show up as people in different areas of life. It's no, you are who you are. That's just my belief. And so what I realized was how I was showing up as a man actually was impacting, inflowing into these other areas. And ironically, I don't know, that's what brought me to plant medicine. And it was my work in that space. And that had me have some really deep realizations. And then there was a ton of integration work. And I realized that I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs, and I had a lot of ways that I was operating in fear, even though I was the abundance guy. I was really living my life through a lot of fear and making a lot of decisions through fear and scarcity and disbelief in myself, and in that process, I was able to really disconnect from the result and come from a place of true belief that the results don't matter. Just focus on creating value. And if you do that, the results will happen. And getting to it, and that's easy to say, and I always used to say it, but I never believed it.
Yeah.
Because the results weren't showing up. And so it's one thing, we can say whatever we want, but it's not what you say that matters. That's one of the reasons I'm not a big believer in manifestations, because I think anybody can sit in a mirror and write manifestations out, whatever. If you don't believe it, if you don't feel it, it doesn't matter. Your body doesn't know what you're saying. It knows what you're feeling. And that was the power of the medicine for me, was it got me to feel it. And as soon as I felt it, I embodied it. And as soon as I embodied it, I'll tell you this, my business has grown 4,000% in 4 years since that moment.
Glad you mentioned plant medicine. I speak about it publicly and openly, and it's interesting in the impact it's had on my life. A lot of people get drawn to it because they hear about all of these, godlike experiences and the euphoria and the self-love. Which is all there, which is all a beautiful
totally.
part of it, right?
Yep.
The other side of it, actually, let me take a step back. So I believe we're at 100% capacity all the time, whatever that is. I'm only at 20%. No, you're at 100%. And if we want more, whatever, passion, money, success, physical, whatever, it requires that there's a shedding that we have to let go and create space for what it needs to be coming in, So when people ask, well, what's it like to be in a plant medicine ceremony, take ayahuasca, the way I try to articulate it, the reality is we could talk about it until you've done it. You just don't know. But, it takes what I say is it takes your conscious and your subconscious and the divine, whatever you see as God, puts everything in alignment and then rips away every story. And just tells the truth, right? And your truth that you cannot deny. It's a feeling. You see it, you hear it, and it can pierce you, because we all have stories and narratives that are supporting wherever we are in life. And then all of a sudden, it's you see it. It's oh my gosh, everything I've been telling myself is actually not even real. And the pain, if you will, of noticing it and accepting that and letting that stuff go is very, very painful.
Completely.
And it will take you to play. And then all of a sudden, in my case, many call it an ego death, right? And it's yet one of the most beautiful things that anyone can really go through. But to be able to, face yourself, I always say the hardest person we have ever faced, currently faced, or will ever face is ourselves, right? And they say that the truth hurts, which it does, but it also sets you free.
Totally.
and that would work with anybody else, but especially with ourselves. And to me, it's like I have this whole new relationship with the letting go, the, burning up, really, if you will, from those really rock bottom moments, the pain, they're actually gifts, and choosing today to look at life and like, what we view as bad really actually is for our good. Yet we have free will and a choice of what we do with it, and when you can lean into that and do that. And, I appreciate you sharing that thing with your wife, because, it's just like, what, you're like, is this even what I want? Who am I? And all the things. And then all of a sudden, you know what, I don't know what to do. And I've heard of this medicine. I'm going to lean into it. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoo, and I'm sure a very painful process, mentioned the integration going through that.
The most painful.
Yeah.
But, I look back at it now and it's interesting. There's been multiple affairs through our relationship. There's been that situation after we got through all that 15 years later, right? And it was like, then this kind of rears its head and it got me off guard. And looking back at it, a lot of people ask me, a lot of men specifically ask me, how do you forgive her? Not only do I forgive her, but I'm grateful for the whole situation, because like I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that catalyst.
So take two men. Everybody's different, right? But you've been able to forgive her and find even gratitude in it versus somebody else that is still in this role, resentment, anger, victim, whatever. And like, so what's the difference?
Well, I think the difference is mindset and radical accountability. Like the first thing that happened when it happened, and I'm not asking for like a medal for this or anything, but like, I think it might've been even led through a place of desperation. But it was, what did I do to cause this?
Yep.
And it was, listen, I'm my whole life, one of the most important things of my life is I'm never going to be a victim. Right. And so if this happened, if there was a transgression or whatever, I'm not going to just blame her. Like nothing happens in a vacuum.
Yeah. You played a role.
I played a role. And so the first thing that happened to me, and like, thank God this is all the development work I've done and whatever, but my first thought was, what was my role in this? Like, how am I not showing up? What did I do to make her feel like she even needs to go do that? You know what I mean? And so the thing that with men that I see that have a hard time with this is that it's an overinflated ego. It's the fact that they feel they've been wrong, they've been transgressed against, like whatever, and they just can't get past that. And I promise you, like nobody's out to hurt. I believe nobody's out to hurt anybody. People hurt people. Like things happen. Like my wife hurt me, right? Like that was a thing, but she wasn't trying to hurt me. Like I was just kind of like on the train tracks and she was going a path and she didn't know how to steer, and that happened. And so it's a very personal thing, but you can't take it personally.
Yep.
And I think when you do that and you realize like, listen, I'm not perfect. I know I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm sure the same for you, everybody, right? And so as soon as you realize like, you're not perfect, and I'm sure if you did an audit of your life and said, all right, have you ever hurt somebody that you didn't intend to hurt, right? That if you wish you could go back and do it differently, and that if you could, you would. And like, if you had the opportunity, you probably could rekindle a relationship and it might be amazing. You know what I mean? And so the challenge is most of us don't give ourselves the chance to go back and do that. We don't give ourselves the chance to go back and do that. And we end up, the only person we hurt is ourselves, So I just looked at it and was like, all right, I love her. I want it to work. Like our life is way more powerful and impactful together. And I'm going to set my ego aside to see. There's no guarantee it's going to work, right? Like we had to go through a process and it was hard. I'm not going to sit here and say it was easy, but it was worth it, and relationships are hard. I don't care if you're talking business partnerships, friendships, marriage, whatever. The more intimate it is and the closer you become, the harder it's going to be.
Yeah. And I believe that, again, no matter what's happened in any relationship, no matter how whatever it happens to be, if you have two people that are willing to look in the mirror and own their shit, first and foremost, like all of it, and then come together, magic can happen.
Magic.
magic, but it requires that both people do it.
100%. And that's the thing, is like the one thing that, when men ask me, the thing that saved me and my wife is we have a very shared vision of what, the life we desire is there. So we have alignment on that. And from there, she was willing to do the work. I was willing to do the work. And we didn't do it to save the marriage. We did it to grow interdependently. And then it just so happened that it came together.
With some of the men or some of my clients that, that are working on relational things, one of the things that I tell them, like, look, you have to look at this as a 1+. I mean, you're going to win no matter what. You played a role. You're the common denominator. You've got this work to do. Like, she will either meet you or she won't. But you're going to have to do this anyway, because if you don't, you're going to take it to another relationship, and you're going to rinse and repeat the same cycle.
That was exactly my mindset.
So it's like, I win no matter what.
Yep.
And I believe, again, especially when there's something hardship or pain or whatever happens to be, I believe, right, in, we'll call it the divine God that wants the best for us, and just because something was, hey, I can't imagine being better, but if I'm willing to do this, and even if it doesn't work, that there's something there that I can't quite see, but I'm going to have faith and belief that it's going to be even better than I could possibly imagine. And that's been the case for me in every hardship I've gone through.
Totally.
I can look back on it and have extreme gratitude. I mean, painful, in hell, many moments, but yet look back and I'm like, I am so grateful for that experience. And, and now when things don't work out the way I want them to, or I'm in a season of practicing accepting just what is, because most of the pain that we experience is really attached to an outcome not happening how we want to. So if we can detach from that and just be like, you know what, I'm going to do everything I possibly can. But once we accept what is, it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But if we accept it, it loses its power. So we can move through things so much quicker. But easier said than done. Some call it the art of detachment. But I'm learning to really practice it and there is so much peace that comes from that.
Totally. Have you ever heard of Adlerian psychology? So Adlerian psychology, so we all know Freud and Jung, right? That's kind of modern psychology is all based in Freudian and Carl Jung psychology. That's the foundation of everything. So there's this guy, Adler, who was their contemporary about the same time, just after they were around. And the idea is he says trauma's not real. And the reason trauma's not real is because, and it's way deeper. I mean, this is a whole thing, but there's a really good book called The Courage to Be Happy and The Courage to Be Disliked. And it's all about Adlerian psychology. I would really suggest to read it. It's amazing. But the premise is trauma isn't real because you and I could go through a situation, right? And let's call it a really hard situation, whatever that is. And you may interpret it as traumatic and I may interpret it with gratitude, right? We could have kids that grow up in the same household. One of them grows up to be a sociopath. One of them grows up to be wildly successful. Their dad beat him the same way, was abused the same, whatever it is. What was it, trauma, or is it the interpretation of what happened? It's so the idea is Freud and Jung say our life is dictated by our past, and that creates who we are, and we react and we respond from that place. Whereas Adlerian psychology says we are driven by our future vision. And trauma isn't real unless you allow it to be. It's all our interpretations. And as human beings, we are actually, from a psychology perspective, driven from our vision, not our past. But it takes a radical self-accountability for it. And it's a fascinating thing.
No, I love that. Yeah. And they obviously, the past is the past. We can't change it, but we can actually, but the truth is leaning into more of that, perspective or way of looking at life. It's you actually can change the past. You can change the story. You
can change the interpretation of the past.
And that's what I meant.
Change the meaning of it.
Change
totally
the attachment to it. So
totally,
I went through a divorce. I wouldn't wish divorce on my worst enemy, but for my family and my kids, it was actually one of the greatest things that I could have ever gone through. And yes, it doesn't look like it was quote unquote supposed to. I didn't feel that in the moment. And with time, as I've gotten more clarity and kind of seeing, it's I can look back on that with an immense amount of gratitude for that experience and the blessings, the benefits, the beautiful things that have come as a result of something that was very devastating and heartbreaking. I want to come back on the identity thing because you're talking about it, kind of the medicine thing. So, one of the, in the wealth management firm that I ended up losing, it wasn't just, it was so deep and so layered. There were multiple people that were affected by it. It wasn't just a paycheck. It wasn't just the money. It was who I was. It was my identity. My, foresight was Adam. It was who I was, and I was, my worth was tied to other people's opinions and all the different things. And and to me, it was the pursuit of money, and you're getting awards and accolades. You walk into a room, everybody knows who you are. I mean, it just fueled me. My worth was tied to it. And yeah, what was interesting kind of bringing, and I actually have never, shared this on a podcast, but, bringing kind of the ayahuasca plant medicine. When I first sat with medicine in Costa Rica, I had an entire night of experiencing losing everything. I had just purchased a houseboat. So literally in my journey, if you will, I'm at Antelope Point, which is a marina there, and the lady shows up, she goes, "Hey, I need the keys back. You don't need that." I'm like, "Well, I just bought this," so going back. So I this entire night I experienced losing everything item by item that I had attached so much of my worth to, everything. And of course, when you're in it, it's real. It feels like it's happening in real life. And, it's going through all the things, and the pain's getting even deeper and deeper. And then it gets even to my relationship at the time, seeing that go away and the pain of that. And then it gets to my kids, and I'm sobbing, and I'm like, "Don't take my kids, don't take my kids." And there was this beautiful divine message. It's like, "Adam, you're not your business. You're not your toys. You're not your investments. You're not your relationship. You're this whole person, this and it was this beautiful self-love, this self-acceptance. And it was a beautiful experience in medicine to really experience the detachment of the stuff, right? My identity to that, but fast forward after I ended up actually losing my company, which is wild about that experience, is I had to sell everything with legal fees and all the thing. In the order of which I sold everything was the exact same order that I saw it. And even the relationship came to an end, literally in the exact same order, and I look at where I'm at today, where so much of it was tied, my worth was tied to that. And the reality is I built an empire on stilts. So foundationally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, relationally, there wasn't anything there. There were so many voids, and my worth was tied to that. So rather than deal with some of these other things, the avoidance, well, I'm just going to put more for here because, and how it was taken down, it would have been, if it wasn't that, it would have been something else, but it was such a beautiful thing now that yes, I care about money. I care about success. I'm driven, to hit certain goals and so forth. But I also know that me as a man, my worth as a man is not tied to that at all. And, and worthiness comes up with a lot of people. They might not know it consciously, but I've also found this, you could have a guy that's making ridiculous, FU money, but something else is off. But if you get to the core of it and they don't know it at first, it's they don't feel worthy of love. They don't feel worthy of success, or they don't feel worthy of this. It's this, and that's just a story. And of which is a story that we can rewrite.
Yeah. I think it's just the perspective, most people are acting their lives out from a state of perceived trauma. And if you're seeking the money and the validation, there's a reason, that you're seeking that you're putting your energy, your life force into these things and trying to seek that validation. Maybe your dad wasn't around enough when you were a kid. Maybe there was an abusive situation. Maybe you never felt like people saw you, and so you're compensating or
overcompensating.
Yeah, overcompensating, oh, yeah, right? Sure. Things like this. Everybody has something from childhood that if you don't deal with it, will end up completely directing your life. And what I've seen is that, all right, if we go back to that point in time, it comes back to what we were talking about before. It's interpretation. It's all right, we could have both come up from similar households, but if we interpret it completely differently, well, how it runs our life is going to be completely different. And so it's just a matter of being able to see that. And unfortunately, most people, if I could tell you probably have the same thing, how many men that I talk to specifically, they're like, "I didn't have any trauma." I'm like, okay, sure. We all have it in some way, shape, or form. I think as humans, we're supposed to have it. It's supposed to shape us, but it's part of the human experience to go back and identify it and grow. And, it's, I don't know. I look at it through the lens that, this is just this journey, and there's no good or no good or bad. It's just, what are we trying to accomplish? And if we can get away from trying to impress people and just get into our full authentic self and realize that, hey, and this is just my belief, is we get pure fulfillment through service. The
more you give, the more
you give, the more you get. And like literally, if you can just say, and everybody's different, like what does you fully authentic look like? Like, what does that look like? How would you show up? If money weren't an issue, if failure wasn't a concern, what does the fully embodied authentic version of you look like? That's the question. And the reality is, none of us are going to get there. None of us are going to be perfect, but we can endeavor to strive to that. You know what I mean? Intentionally, as often as possible.
Which is one of my core things that I actually really try to embody, because again, as I mentioned earlier, so much of my worth and everything was tied to other people's opinions, trying to control narratives, all the different things of how they see me. And it's interesting. It's exhausting. I was wearing multiple masks depending upon who I was showing up with. And at the end of the day, it's like, when you really take a step back, and you're like, you know what? Everybody's judging everybody anyway. Yeah. Everybody has an opinion already. And so like, if I'm going to put effort into something, I might as well put effort into myself. Totally. And if someone doesn't resonate with me or like me, right, that might quote unquote sting. And then I'll sit with it more. And I'm like, well, I actually really don't like you or really care anyway. So why am I having a whole thing about this anyway?
That's why I always say it's not good or bad. Is it aligned or misaligned? And we could talk about this with money, with relationships, with business. It's there. We need to stop assigning value to all of it, and we need to start getting clear on what are we trying to accomplish. What do we want our life to be about? What does the fully embodied, authentic version of me look like? And then not trying to seek validation from other people, not trying to, get the clients because I'm impressing them or this or that, but just when you show up as the fully embodied, authentic version of yourself as often as possible, what you're going to do is be a magnet, and you're going to magnetize the attraction of people who are in alignment with your frequency. Yep. And guess what? Your life is going to get better and better and better. And that compounding thing we were talking about earlier, it's going to happen at a rate. They say like when they could put a shuttle in outer space, and rather than being, and this is like sci-fi, but like rather than being like fuel generated, yep, they use a magnet, and the magnet starts really slow, but it never stops building energy. And therefore it can hit like this light speed. So if we're talking about going, whereas the rocket might boost off fast, but it always hits this max capacity where it can't go any faster. Right. And so when we get in complete alignment, it may not feel like you're getting this boost, because we live in this world where there's this microwave mindset. We want it now and whatever, but just be willing to go slow to go fast.
Yep.
And just be the authentic version of yourself, and you will magnetize the people that are in that frequency, and your life will be better.
You said something that was interesting, like, it's your interpretation of this. So one thing that truth. It's like, well, this is true. This is truth. I posted more of a controversial thing here on social here a little while ago last week about God, okay, right? Everybody has, you can talk to 100 different people, and it's a man, it's a woman, it's an energy, it's this, it's that. And it's like, we really take a step back. Like we don't even know, like, we don't know, like, and is it okay to not know? And man, it brought out, the Bible says this, you're being blasphemous, you're doing all these different things. And it was interesting just to kind of sit with that. But it's their truth. And what's interesting is you just said, like, it's based on someone's interpretation. Yeah. I've always hated the phrase, like, the truth is somewhere in the middle, No. But the reality is, like, truth is, in many things, is subjective.
Yeah.
It's based upon beliefs, how you were raised. How many times have you and I could have this conversation, go, share it with somebody, and you and I could tell two completely different experiences, totally, yet we were the only two in the conversation.
100%.
And so I love that you said perspective, because that's what came to mind. It's like, you said interpretation. Like, when it comes to truth, like, when you hear that word, like, what is true? What's not true?
I think truth is kind of bullshit, honestly. Like, I look at, like, there is no truth. There's just like your truth. And we're all on a journey to discover what that is, and I think that's kind of what this is all about. especially like the God thing. I think about that a lot, so that's fascinating that you did that. And it's funny because my wife and I, as we're driving across the country right now. And so we just got here, an hour ago. And on that process, we're listening to this one playlist that it was like mystical Christianity, which is like blasphemy, right, to a lot of people. And we're just curious. We're just going around and and it's amazing. You listen to this guy talk about mystical Christianity and the interpretation of Jesus and his life and this and that. And it's like, I don't know what's right or wrong. It's like for me, when it comes to spirituality, it's like the one thing I've reconciled is none of us know. Like, and we can all have whatever beliefs we want to have, but whether we're talking about our faith and God, or whether, I think it's important to believe in something, right? Like, and I think it's important to stand on that, but I think it's also important to not infringe your beliefs on other people because we all have our own journeys, right? And it's not good or bad. Is it aligned or misaligned? And if you and I share wildly opposing values and beliefs, we're probably not going to spend a lot of time together, and that's totally fine. You'll have plenty of people in your life that will share values, and because of that, you're going to magnetize them to you if you live in your fully authentic expression, and you will be more fulfilled because you'll be surrounded by them, and if you all do good things together, well, then cool, right? And the same for me. And if we're in alignment, well, then we're going to probably do some cool stuff together, but the same thing goes for money and finances. It's another polarizing area that I work in, that you used to work in. It's like, you go talk to the investment guys, you go talk to the insurance guys, you go talk to the private equity guys, you go talk to, like, they all have different ideas of their truth and what's good, what's bad. There is no good or bad. There is no truth. It's just, is it aligned or misaligned with what your calling on this earth is? And I think that the reason people struggle with this idea so much because they don't do enough time in prayer and meditation, in plant medicine journeys and introspection. They don't know themselves well enough. So rather than finding the answers in here, they're seeking it out there. Yep. And you're always going to be miserable.
Who would they be if they didn't know?
Exactly.
Like it goes back to your ego.
Exactly.
It's like it's a defense mechanism in such a way. Like, and I mean, that's the one thing that religion does, is that, like, it fills in the blanks for people. Right. So it's like if the whole world, I saw something the other day about religion, and they were just saying, like, if there wasn't religion, in today's society where everybody's at conscious level, like, the world would collapse. I mean, they need it creates structure, it creates, and again, we have right now in the world today, I mean, so many wars and opinions that are literally on completely different planets, but they're so rooted in their beliefs, and it's like, to them, it's their truth, and you're not going to convince the other person otherwise. And it's just like, so how do we find common ground where you can believe what it's wild to me to watch play out. And it's just like holding space for someone to have separate opinions. And it doesn't mean that yours is, I love what you said, it's not right or wrong, it's alignment.
Yeah. And what would the world look like if we could have our beliefs and our own truths, right? And, like, not have to shy down from that, but, like, give grace to other people to allow them to have their own.
Yeah, it's like,
as well.
Really, it's what you believe? Tell me more. Like, I want to hear more, versus like, oh, you're wrong.
What if we could seek every conversation with curiosity?
Yep.
Right? What if we could, I mean, that on its own would change the dynamic of everything, right? Like, if you tell me something and I disagree with you, rather than fighting you and telling you you're wrong and telling you that this is why I think you're wrong and my ideas are better, and trying to convert you, right? What if I just was curious about, how did you come to that? Like, what were the influences in your life? Why do you believe that? Like, tell me more, and we got to that place. We're going to build a connection, and then we may get to the end. And at the end of that conversation, we may not agree, but there's going to be a respect.
Yeah.
Right. And the world will be a different place.
Yeah, curiosity is a superpower when you can express it. As we kind of wrap up things here, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I got 2 podcasts actually that I run. I run Life 180, which is on YouTube. It's a financial education podcast. My whole passion for people is teaching people how to utilize money as a tool. Well, elevate consciousness with money, first of all, learn how to utilize it as a tool to create a life that's meaningful to them, right? And that's different for everybody. I think, especially in personal finance, one of the biggest travesties, pandemics in this world, is that there's all these one-size-fits-all solutions. And last I saw, every human has got their own unique DNA, and their own unique way of operating in this world. And so, one of the things that really, I don't have a lot of triggers, but one of the triggers is, like, when I hear people say, oh, you struggle with money because your relationship with money is bad. You know, it's like, no, people don't have relationships with money. You have a bad relationship with yourself and a poor understanding of money as a tool. Money doesn't have emotion or you know, personality. You can't have a relationship with something like that. And so I just want to teach people how to understand how to like consciously utilize money, not from a place of right or wrong, not from a place of good or bad, but from a place of alignment or misalignment. And that brings in all sorts of different things. At the end of the day, there's going to be products, there's going to be strategies, there's going to be tactics, but let's get away from the strategies and tactics and get to the foundation of principles. And the principles are, you know, I have a process I call cash flow hacking, and it's 5 pillars. First pillar is personal growth and expansion. Second is debt management. Then third is savings optimization. Fourth is aligned investing or investor DNA. And the fifth is tax, estate, retirement planning strategy, you know, like the end of life and the things we have to think about. And it's, everybody comes in a different place. These are all things that we all need to understand. They're all basics, and there's different tactics and strategies at each step of the way. But the principle is your business and your life is never going to outgrow your own expansion and your own growth. And the most important thing in your life above and beyond your investments and your assets and your rate of returns and all these things is going to be your ability to create value in the world. And so let's focus on that first, and then you'll be amazed how the rest kind of falls into place based on your own growth. And that's why I think it's important to not start by just doing all these crazy investments when we're young before we're even the person that we're going to become.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that. And what's your other podcast?
The other one is called Thrive Hive. I do it with my wife. So it's all about healing, growing, and thriving. And so we go around. I'd actually love to interview you on that, like, because it's about interviewing people that have gone through the fire ultimately. And everything from, you know, just personal challenges, business challenges, plant medicine stuff. Even we've interviewed some like high-end AI people about like consciousness and AI in the world and what that's going to do to the world. But we live in a fragmented world. Like, people are dealing with so much internal struggle, and I just believe that we want to get to a place of thriving, but before we thrive, we have to heal. Yep. And then we got to grow into that. And, you know, it's really about inspiring people to realize that you may feel like you're stuck in a position right now, but you can get to where you want to go, and probably where you want to go, you're not even aware it's even possible at this moment in time, you know?
No, I'd be honored if.
That'd be amazing.
I just feel like you're right. It's very, your words, right? I like how you articulate it. We're in a very fragmented world. There's so much chaos going on. There's so many people having all these things. It's bringing all this stuff, which I think is happening for a reason. And what to do with all of it is what people struggle with.
I will say this. One of the interesting things, a year and a half ago, we bought our retreat center in the Dominican Republic, and we're out in the jungle in a fishing village with 200 local people that I don't speak Spanish. I don't speak their language, but we're in this place right on the ocean. And the fascinating thing for me has been, since being down there and spending the overwhelming majority of my time in this country, disconnected from media, disconnected from the news, disconnected from politics, my whole nervous system has like completely regulated, you know, and it's allowed me to go internal and seek the truth, my truth inside. And it's as I've done that, and I don't think this is a coincidence. My sample set is small of one person, or I guess two with my wife, but our lives and the compounding in a very short window of time has been beyond anything we could ever expect, right? But it took us disconnecting, I say kind of unplugging from the matrix a bit, you know? And it took us to do that, to find the truth in ourselves and to get really intentional away from the noise, away from like, what are we doing for other people? Because it's hard to block that out. But when you just go to the jungle and you're there and you have no noise, you get to be really present about, what do I want my life to be about? How are we going to do that? What do I want my journey to look like? And how do we create it? It's not about what am I trying to do? How important am I trying to be? How much money am I trying to make? It's like, what do I want this human experience to be?
Yeah, I love that. Man, we could talk for hours. Yeah, we're definitely in resonance. And man,
Totally.
Chris, I appreciate you.
Oh, it's an honor, man.
You know, sharing your story, being open and vulnerable. You know, thanks to Sean Finnegan for the introduction, and we'll tag your social things in this. And look forward to spreading your story and your mindset. And again, and for those that are listening and watching, Chris's mind, the way he sees the world is very much the way I see the world. And again, as we talked about, the challenges, the fear and everything that you're facing, these are gifts, and they will crack you open. It'll help release what's not serving. And again, it's scary, and you've got two guys here amongst many other people that have gone through the fire, if you will, and there's beauty in it. So you're not alone. Reach out to either one of us if you need anything. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, man.
And we'll see you next time on the Burn Up Podcast.